he's like, hey, we got the guy picked up on a detainer for immigration status. Uh, no pressure, but can you come to Dallas Homicide and get a confession from this guy? So I'm like, I can try. I mean, obviously, so chain of command's in the loop. Everybody knows that I kind of help the Rangers at this time, so I'm allowed some grace. I never do anything without making sure that the chain of command, my
Yeah.
supervisors are good with it. So I kept a pair of plain clothes in my car for just these situations. People don't at the time, the people I was talking to, they don't like a uniform, so I'd essentially have to pop out of that uniform and put on some plain clothes to talk to these folks. So that's what I did that night. I popped in some plain clothes and flew to Dallas Homicide, and the guy was in a holding area, and I realized that he'd been running for a little bit. He hadn't eaten anything, so I gave him a bologna sandwich and a water, and I asked for an interview room, and so we went to the interview room. We went through the whole, Miranda and all that, and I got lucky enough to get a confession from him, and he essentially timelined everything on how he killed her and corroborated the physical evidence, and essentially ultimately leading to a conviction. But again, justice for a victim, right? We had a female that was brutally murdered and dumped in the middle of nowhere, and again, no pressure, but we need this confession, right? So that kind of set me on a different course.
Okay, so for the audience, this is going to be my last Ranger interview while I'm in Texas. I think this is going to be a good one. Um, let's get into it. Okay, can you introduce yourself for me, please?
Yes, sir. Job Espinoza. Job, just like the good book.
Okay, Job. And what's your current position?
I'm a Texas Ranger in Company B, currently stationed in Parker, Palpatine County.
Okay, and how long have you been a Ranger for?
I've been a Ranger for 4 years.
4 years. Okay, so before we get into your career, I want to talk about some stuff. And I know if the viewers, listeners have listened to Lane Atkins or Bess at this point, Ranger Bess, they've heard a little bit about a history. So um, you were able to pull out some items for me about the badge. Lane talked a little bit about it the other day, but can you show me kind of and explain the process of how the badge is made?
Yes, sir. Yeah, so the badge is very unique to the Texas Ranger. Obviously, it's made out of a Cinco Peso coin and has been made out of a Cinco Peso coin since the 60s. So I've got the badge is made out of a 47 or a 48 Cinco Peso. And as you can see here, it's solid silver, right? The 47 and the 48 are the silver content's the best for the badge. What they do is they take it, and we have three authorized badge makers, which are Kevin Johnson, Lopez Engraving, and Jay Brandt. So what they'll do is they'll take it and they'll face off that peso, and obviously you can see the back is still the same, and then they'll take it and they'll do the cutouts and essentially do the engraving and all that, and then put a dome on it. So this is a Kevin Johnson badge. Kevin Johnson's primarily the maker that I use. I really like the way he does a badge.
Okay.
Because they all have unique styles, different lettering and things like that. So,
Yeah.
To each his own, as far as which maker they like.
Okay. And then I didn't ask Lane or Ranger Best this, but give me tell me what your typical uniform is for the Rangers on a day-to-day basis.
So this is the required uniform for the Texas Rangers. Essentially it's a wide or solid colored shirt, tie, Western rig, cowboy boots,
Cowboy boots.
and a silver belly or a silver sand hat.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Very good. Okay, so let's get into it. Tell me a little bit about growing up. What kind of kid were you? Tell me about your parents. Did you have brothers and sisters? Where'd you grow up?
So I grew up in Graham, Texas, which is essentially just northwest of Fort Worth. I had two great parents, essentially very conservative religious parents, so there wasn't too much room for error there as far as the way we were raised. My dad was in the oil field, my entire life as a kid, and my mother was in home health care, essentially took care of people in their homes towards the end of their lives. So, two older brothers, two younger brothers, and my youngest brother and I always had an idea of what we wanted to do. He always wanted to be a game warden, and I always wanted to be a Texas Ranger. It's just something that, and I'll tell you a little bit about more about that, about how I wanted to do that and why I wanted to do that. But typical raising in a small town, just sports and doing the typical country boy thing, hunting and fishing and just I'm really thankful for my raising in Graham. There was just a lot of good people. I was surrounded by great friends, made lifelong friends there that I still keep in touch with and hang out with to this day.
Did your brother actually become a game warden?
Yes, he did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. My brother's a game warden, and he actually transferred back to Graham. He's the game warden there in Young County.
Oh, nice.
Yep, Joshua Espinoza. Yep.
Okay. So, what kind of student were you? Good student, bad student?
I was I'm a social butterfly, so I've definitely passed, but I wasn't the best student at the time, and obviously just like I wasn't your straight A student. I got through school. I like to socialize, and that's probably my biggest problem. I always found myself getting out of class or doing the typical things that you do in high school. But towards my senior year, I realized, hey, you're fixing to have to grow up. You're fixing to have to do some things. Life's going to sneak up on you, and you're going to have to make a decision that you're going to need some grades to get by. So I buckled down, graduated high school, and obviously knew the direction I was going in law enforcement because it's just something I always wanted to do.
Yeah. So tell me about that. Tell me about your desire to go into law enforcement, in particular. Why the Texas Rangers?
So we growing up, especially in a small town, you grow up watching westerns, you grow up, just looking at different things, and I was just really intrigued by the Texas Rangers and law enforcement in general. As a kid, I was the kid that was always, wearing a double rig with play guns on it, and just really had that desire and that just to be a good guy, so to speak, so to do the right thing. And I'll never forget it. At that point I was familiar with the Rangers, but I wasn't really from it. Like, I knew the history of the Rangers, but Texas Monthly put out a magazine, and I was about 10 years old, and I went to our local barber shop, and it was I believe it was Twilight of the Texas Rangers is what it was, and it was on the counter there at the barber shop, and I dove into that magazine, and it talked about all the great Rangers across the state, and just showed their beautiful guns and grips, and about how these were the guys that went after the worst of the worst in the state of Texas, and that's what I want to do.
Mm.
I want to do that. I want to aspire to do that, and it's one of those things where if you want to be a Ranger, you keep it close, but you don't really verbalize that. So
Mhm.
you don't go around telling everybody, "Hey, I'm going to be a Texas Ranger."
Right.
Some folks kind of frown upon that, and it's hard to do. It's a small group,
Yeah.
a select group, so you don't ever want to put the cart before the horse. So essentially, that's kind of how I went through my career. Until the time came that I was eligible, I really didn't vocalize that a whole lot, especially to my fellow law enforcement officers.
So when I chatted with Lane the other day, Lane said at the time, I think he said there were 94 active Rangers. How many active Rangers now?
So there's 170 active Rangers right now, and
Okay.
there's approximately 130 field Rangers. So I'm cutting out the brass and the guys that are behind the desk, but in the field, 254 counties in the state of Texas, you got approximately 130 field Rangers out there. They're doing the Lord's work right now. So.
Okay. Okay. So you start your law enforcement career in 2007. You're 22 years old, and you start with Graham PD. How do you end up at Graham PD?
So, I started the academy when I was about 21 years old. I was doing criminal justice at the time. Most of your agencies required that 90-hour mark with college education prior to. So I hit my 90-hour mark. I always wanted to go to DPS, but I used to go and have breakfast with some of these salty old troopers, and they made the suggestion, "Hey, you should go get your peace officer license and essentially get some time and then apply to DPS, because you're going to have to go to the border regardless. And if you're not ready to go to the border, you need to, do some time in the field and then see what happens from there.
Oh, let me ask you a question,
Yeah.
because I'm curious about how Texas works. Do do you go to an academy before you apply to a police department, or you go to the academy after you get assigned to a police
So
department?
yeah, you go to a police academy first. If just for a regular sheriff's office, police
Okay.
department, or whatever, you have to go to a police academy before. Some have integrated police academies where they essentially do the police academy in house, and then you automatically go to work for them.
So let me make sure I got this straight. So you go to an academy, and once you get your hours or accreditation, then you can start applying.
Yes, to a PD.
Ah,
So
okay.
that's kind of what happened. So I'm in the police academy, and I get a call from the Jim Nance at the time, who was the chief of Graham Police Department in my hometown. He's like,
Hmm.
"Hey, I hear you're going to the police academy." It's like, "Yes, sir, I am." He's like, "Well, why don't you come to work for us?" And I was like, "I'd love to come work for you. I mean, it's a job, right? And it's wearing a gun to badge, and it's back home." So I was like, "Yeah, I'll come work for you." So essentially, before I graduated the academy, I had a job, and I go through the academy, and I end up at Graham PD. Uh, so
How big is Graham PD?
so Graham's not very big. And they're a lot bigger now than they were back then.
Hmm.
So let me see. Population in Graham's probably like 10,000.
Okay.
Probably a little bit more now. At the time, it was about 10,000. There was probably, let's see, probably about 30 sworn, I would say, there at the PD.
Okay.
So I come back, go to work in my hometown, right? A little bit better than it sounds. Obviously, being back in Graham, dealing with some of the folks you grew up with, dealing with everybody knows you.
Yeah, yeah.
It,
So how
it,
is that?
it's difficult.
Yeah.
It's hard to do your job, and you're dealing with everybody's problem in your hometown. So everybody's drama, essentially, on some of the things that are going behind the scene. I immediately knew that it was obviously my goal was to get to DPS
Right.
eventually. It 2 years was enough in Graham. And then I decided to make a change in that process. And in the process of making that change, kind of the same thing happens. Small area, small community. The sheriff's office heard I was looking, and they said, "Hey, would you be interested in coming over here to work?" And I was like, "Absolutely."
Do you remember your first arrest at Graham PD?
I do. Yeah, yeah, I do. I do remember my first arrest at Grand PD. So I always had you know, being on patrol. The main thing that guys gravitate to is working narcotics, working drugs. And one of the very first arrests that I made was a guy that I went to high school with. I pull him over, and I immediately knew. I hadn't seen the guy in several years, obviously, moving away and then coming back. I immediately knew this guy was going to have drugs on him. And he was a guy I got along with. I mean, so it got really awkward really quick, but I knew obviously I need to do my job. And
Yeah.
next thing I know, he's going to jail for drugs. So that was, it sticks in my mind because it was, one of my very first arrests there at Grand PD.
Did you ever have to deal with any of your old teachers, anything like that?
I pulled my old teachers and educators and stuff over for speeding and some different things. So and of course it's a big grin, good relationships. It makes for a good laugh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So it was fun. I enjoyed that part of it, and serving your community and being back home. But it's one of those things. It's like I was moving on anyways, but 2 years was probably a little too long.
Got it. Got it. Okay, so you move on from Graham PD. You go to, you said the sheriff's department. I want to make sure I got this right.
Yes, sir.
Do you go to Palo Pinto PD?
Yeah, Palo Pinto County Sheriff's Office.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And then, so what are you working?
So I go straight. I'm a patrol officer in
Okay.
Graham, and then I go straight to a patrol deputy.
Okay.
But when I came over to Palo Pinto County at the time, I was working a lot of drugs. I was doing a lot of patrol stuff. I was getting a lot of drugs on patrol.
Okay.
So essentially making a lot of drug arrests. And when I spoke to the sheriff at the time, he's like, "Hey, there's going to be a position more than likely open in the narcotics unit. So come over, work as a deputy for me. We're very unique. and I found out what he meant by that. So in Palo Pinto County at the time, as a patrol deputy, you worked all your investigations unless it was an act sexual assault or a murder. So regardless of anything other than that, you worked it from start to finish. You process if you got a call of a burglary, you worked that burglary. If you got a questionable death, you worked that questionable death up until requiring a captain or a sergeant investigator to come in and take over because it becomes a murder. But even then, you're still included in those cases. So very unique, and I say unique, but at the time that's kind of how it was. Your patrol deputies were investigators, so you're essentially you are answering the domestics and all those other calls, but you're also investigating all your own crimes. You're writing all your own search warrants, writing on all your own arrest warrants, all that stuff in as a deputy in Palo Pinto.
So how big is the area? How what's the population base? And the reason I ask is, how is it when, because we're going to talk a little bit about you working narcotics, you're doing patrol work, but you're also doing undercover. Is there any ever concern about?
So that was different. So when I worked as a patrol deputy, and then I got promoted into narcotics within the sheriff's office on the task force.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So I'm working patrol, right?
Okay.
And the position comes open. So he's like, "Hey, we got a position come open." I'm still working a lot of narcotics, so I end up on the narcotics unit.
Okay.
And narcotics unit at the time was it was mainly driven towards narcotics, but we always ended up working major crimes, which is essentially we got brought in to work with murders or major burglaries, things that required more hands on deck types of things.
How about rape, sexual assaults? Are you doing those too?
Yeah, so we would help on those too. Anything that needed. I mean, sometimes it may just be doing surveillance. Sometimes it may be tracking down a bad guy. Sometimes it was we were just that group. We were the go-to on a lot of those things at the time.
Did you have any cases or types of cases that you didn't like in terms of, I don't like working on child cases, or are there any things
that's exactly right. The child cases, just to me, it just obviously I don't have a choice in it, and they need justice. They're always the toughest ones. They're the ones that you just wish they didn't happen. They happen, but yeah, those are probably the toughest ones. And I think across the board, you're going to get a lot of officers that tell you those are just the ones they don't want to work.
Yeah.
They come across, you want to get them done, you want to get justice, and you want to get that bad guy for sure. But they're the tough ones.
When you start working, sorry, jumping around a little bit,
Yeah.
Getting back to narcotics. When you start working narcotics, is it a small enough community that you ever have to worry about somebody recognizing you?
Absolutely. So, as you being an old narcotics investigator from the day, you remember you switch that hat from patrol to narcotics, and you grow out your beard, change a little bit different. You get to wear some civvies, right? You get to do those things. But there's always so initially, as first, I was an investigator, and I'm not really doing any UC work at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But then the need presents itself to start doing some undercover work, and I jump right in. And it's funny you bring that up because that being that small community. So I'm doing narcotics work. I'll tell you about my very first undercover deal. So I get a call from the guy that was the commander at the time. He's like, "Hey, we got this guy. He's selling cocaine out of a hotel. Hispanic guy selling. We think you'd be a good fit to go maybe in there get an intro by a confidential informant, do the intro, come in there that you're doing maintenance on the hotel or whatever, and maybe see if you can buy maybe just a little bit user dope." I'm like, user dope? It's like, let's buy some good dope, let's buy some big dope if we're gonna go buy it. So I talk them into giving me more money for a bigger buy at the time, and I go do the intro and just BSing with him, and just like that, I mean, he sold me cocaine that day. So we'd get the cocaine, and then we'd go do another buy, and I was just like, I don't like this. I don't like UC work. I'm like, I'm a good guy. I like arresting these guys. But I don't like UC work. I quickly realized that yeah, I can do it. I'm capable of doing it. I just don't like it.
Yeah.
So I go on still doing a little bit of UC work here and there, and I end up doing a case that involved some diesel theft. So essentially, these guys were selling diesel from this oil company. Um, and I get in, I do the UC work. I meet these guys in rural Grayford, Texas, end up buying some diesel, going back to a different location, buying some more diesel, stolen diesel, and then they do the takedown, take us down, arrest us all, or whatever. Well, within the process of it, the sheriff does a press release and essentially says we had a, undercover officer that was involved in that operation. I'm like, hey, I can never do undercover work around here again. So, everybody knew who they were dealing with. They recognized the face. These guys, I'm not doing it anymore. So, essentially, after that, I really didn't do any more UC work.
That's interesting, though. You're the first person who said that. I know everybody is different, which is, you didn't like undercover, and was it just because you had to pose as the bad guy? It just didn't feel right.
That's it. It didn't feel right. As a guy, as a kid that grew up, the way I grew up and the things that I valued and the things, it just did not feel right to me. I did not like posing as a bad guy. I didn't like doing it. I didn't like going and don't get me wrong, the work was righteous.
Yeah.
I just didn't like being in that element. And then sometimes you end up in a dope house in the middle of nowhere and you're hanging out with all these guys who are just unfortunately the scum of the earth, right? I
Right.
mean, they're not very good people.
Right.
So it just wasn't for me. So
Interesting.
yeah, but all that to say, my time in narcotics was awesome, especially here. I worked with DEA, I worked with DPS-CID a lot. I worked with ATF, did a lot of undercover stuff with different ATF agents that come in and did weapons deals in the area. We worked a lot of organized crime cases, which are essentially RICO cases, with several defendants, large volumes of methamphetamine. That took us back to different areas in Dallas and Fort Worth, and these different groups were affiliated with cartels, and definitely did a lot of righteous work in that time.
Which is interesting to me, because when you consider, like, how big is the area, but like population wise, it doesn't seem that big out here.
It's not. It's so Mineral Wells is probably about 30,000 in population, I believe, and I may be wrong about that. And then, but the proximity to the metroplex, and at the time, the folks that were living in these parts of the world, the methamphetamine use. So from working, if your businesses are where their users are, so you had a steady supply, and then you're going to have a plug, and when that plug gets connected and they start buying larger quantities of methamphetamine, then you're going to start, it trickles, and then next thing you know, you got multi-pound dealers per day, and then next thing you know, you're working a 30-person organized crime case from dealer to distributor. It's just the way it works.
It's interesting because you've used the word metroplex, and somebody else used the word the other day. What is a metroplex?
So Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Yeah.
It's
just the bigger area.
Yeah, it's just the bigger area. That's what we call over here DFW area.
Yeah, I think that's and I'm going to be traveling around, so I just think it's interesting. Everybody uses different terms. So metroplex has come up the other day. Okay, so from your time with Palo Pinto, is it Palo Pinto?
Palo Pinto.
Okay,
yes,
I want to make sure I'm saying it right. Okay, so then I'm assuming there's always the goal is always to get to the Rangers,
yeah,
right?
so let me talk a little bit about that. So at the time, I'm a brand new, essentially investigator.
Yeah.
And it's always been the goal, but I also was really enjoying my job. So I'm just like, hey, it's coming. I know I'm going to have to immediately, once I go to DPS, I'm going to have to go to the border. And I'm married now. I have a son. At the time, just my son, and my wife has always been super supportive of anything I do or decide to do. So she was on board regardless. But I'm having a good time. And at the time, we had a brand new Ranger. He had just promoted in the Rangers in 2008, and it was Tony Bradford. And Tony and I immediately started working together. I mean, it was the Rangers come in on a major case to investigate it, and then essentially we work with the Rangers, right? So in a county capacity. So Tony and I worked together with everything. So like, I mean, any murder he had, any crazy case he had, like I'll use an example. He had a deputy that was doing some things he shouldn't have been doing, and he had a criminal case on him. But the criminal case that the Rangers were working, it didn't have enough for prosecution. So essentially, he reached out to me to see if I could maybe do some legwork and figure out what this guy was doing. So I did some surveillance on him. Ended up actually getting the guy associating with some criminal element. Ended up getting him arresting him for possession of narcotics.
Mm.
So he was in possession of methamphetamine. And that's kind of how Tony and I's relationship went. You know, he reached out to me. He needed something, or I had a lot of confidential informants that could pretty much find anybody. They always made me look good. And you get a good CI, they're always going to make you look good.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So I was making, I can find anybody at the time. I mean, if they needed to be arrested, U.S. Marshals were constantly tapping into me for fugitives in this area, or because I had some good CIs, and they were always able to do that. So Tony and I become really good friends. We do a lot of interviews together. Actually, I got a funny story about that. The very first interview with Tony Bradford, and I got to do this because it's you know this is what I aspire to be, right? So we get an interview, and this it had a nexus to a homicide, but this guy was essentially claiming more than he really had to do with anything. But you come in here, it's going to be one of your first interviews with the Ranger, and Tony comes in. We kind of talk a little bit before we come in. I've got the rapport with the guy already, so I go through Miranda, and you know, I'm just like, all right, I get to see, you know, watch the Ranger go to work, you know, and he pulls out a can of snuff and packs it, and he's like, I'm looking at him like, you're gonna strike? He goes, go ahead, do your stuff, you know, and I'll put it politely on what he told me to do. So I'm like, oh, okay. So that's kind of the way Tony was, right? Being smooth, confident, you know, everybody relied on him. The guy could talk to anybody, and he's just a good old country boy, you know. He grew up in this Mineral Wells area and ended up coming back and working here. But Tony Bradford and Don Stoner, another ranger from Johnson County, are some of the guys that I was exposed to. And then had Corey Lane up in Graham. He came in around the same time. He's now our assistant chief. So those are some of the guys that I'm out here working with. Some of the guys that something that I aspire to be, right? And I got to help every single one of those guys on cases in that time frame.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I gotta think how valuable it is for you to start off in these small departments and get to know not only the people in the department but the people in the community. So when you come back as a ranger, it's just got to be so helpful.
It is because you know the relationships are here, like you know the district judges, the county judges, the JPs, the district attorneys, every the all the patrol guys. I mean, I know everybody in this part of the world, and no in other parts of the world. So essentially, coming back to DPS and in the Ranger, they're like, "Hey, I remember you. I worked with you. You know."
Do any of them give you grief like, oh, big ranger coming back into town?
No, you know, not really. I think at some point they all kind of realized what my goal was,
Yeah.
and they kind of knew I aspired to do that, whether I verbalized it or not.
Yeah.
They kind of knew where I wanted to go. So, all that being said, I'm working with these guys and I'm helping all these guys on different things. And Tony had the conversation with me one day. He's like, "Hey, I know what you want to do," and he's like, "You're not getting any younger because I know it's going to be hard going to the border." You know, since you're displacing your family. But if this is something you want to do, you need to do it. You need to you need to go ahead and get into DPS. And I went. Obviously, had the discussion with my wife. It's like, hey, it's gonna be tough. We're gonna have to sell our house in Graham. We're gonna have to. I'm gonna apply. Where since you're gonna have to move 100% to the border at the time. You know, Operation Secure Texas
Okay.
was going on pretty heavily, and we've had operations on the border since you know the 1800s. Obviously, I mean so you've got all these different. It was Operation was it Border Star, and then it was Operation Secure Texas, and I think it's Operation Lone Star now. So at the time it was Operation Secure Texas, and I knew that's where I was going to go. So, but I applied, and Tony Bradford, my local ranger, was my essentially my sponsor at the time.
Mm-hmm.
They got like a little recruiting incentive, recruiting bonus for recruiting people to the department. And Tony's not the type of guy that's out here recruiting people either. You got to meet this guy. So he ends up essentially recruiting me to DPS. I mean, we had that conversation, and I put in. wife was on board, and I did it. I applied, I got in, went to the DPS Academy with still hope that, hey, maybe I can end up back in North Texas where I've spent most of my adult life. Never spent much time on the border, and
Mm-hmm.
great place, great people, and but I just this was home, right? So we get our duty assignments, and I'm assigned to Mission, Texas. It's in the RGV, Mission McAllen area. It's down there, right? It's on
Mm-hmm.
the Texas Mexico border. So I call my wife. I'm like, hey, Mission, Texas, it is. Like, I thought maybe there was an out, but there's not. So I go down there as a trooper, and at the time, like I said, it was Operation Secure Texas, and they put us through these tracking schools with the goal being that we would supplement Border Patrol,
Mm.
and they called it a Cortina Unit. So Cortina, the name itself, even has some historical significance because there were some Cortina wars on the border. So they essentially decided to go with the Cortina Unit. So the goal was that I would be wearing a green uniform as opposed to Texas tan uniform 2 weeks out of the month to supplement Border Patrol, essentially chase human trafficking and uh, drug smuggling on the Texas-Mexico border. So 2 weeks highway patrol wearing Texas tan, and then 2 weeks in a green uniform
Mm.
in the brush with Border Patrol and our special operations group.
How was that?
I'll be honest with you, it was a lot of fun. It's right up my alley. It was one of those things where you get down into the river and you're essentially laying in, waiting on dope loads to come across, and you essentially jump the dope loads. You get the bad guys or you get the dope. One of the two. It's happening. A lot of foot chases. A lot of things. Obviously, sometimes those gun battles pop off across the border, and you have to lay down because there's bullets whizzing everywhere, and those they just don't discriminate on where those gun battles go. So I was exposed to a lot, and as a kid that grew up in North Texas and never spent much time on the border, I didn't realize just how much went on. Even being in law enforcement, the amount of things that happen down there, and things that are transpiring.
Mm.
So it was an eye-opening experience being down there, and I was exposed to a lot. On the border. But I still had the desire of investigations, right? So, stopping cars and doing those things were definitely fun while I was doing them down there, and then working with the Cortina Unit was fun. And I had to do a 2 year because it was essentially a year commitment, and then until they filled those spots, you couldn't leave.
Right.
Um,
But is it at that time also that you become a hostage negotiator?
yeah, so that's when I transfer back up. So I'm down there. And let me backtrack a little bit because on my time on the border, because there were so many good guys down there, so many good people. Some the locals were so good. Like, I mean, just people, just salt of the earth folks down there, right?
Yeah.
A lot of good people down there that are just kind of growing up in a place that just happens to have a lot of things going on because
Yeah.
it's essentially the border, you know.
Yeah.
So while I was down there, I quickly figured out. I'm trying to get an idea of how highway patrol is going to work, right? So, I'm still on FTO, which is the Field Training Officer Program through DPS, and my very first check ride, my very first fatality accident in Mission, Texas, was a pursuit that Border Patrol started with some smugglers that had 13 people in the back of a truck. Um, it goes south real quick. They end up wrecking the truck, and then two people are essentially killed on impact. Numerous other people are hurt. There was over 13 people, I think, in the back of the truck. I can't remember the exact number. And then we have now two people that essentially fled the scene that are fugitives from a human smuggling cause and death case. So that's typical Joe Bluck. It's gonna be bad, you know. So I get there and work it, and really nobody wants to touch it. They're like, "Hey, it's fatality accident, like human smuggling. There's a lot of moving components." So I'm like, "Hey, I used to investigate things. I know how to write a search warrant. I know how to do photo lineups. I know how to do different things. I know how to work with my federal counterparts. Would there be any heartburn in me working this?" So essentially, I given permission by my chain of command and the Highway Patrol to work this criminal investigation. Ended up working with HSI, and we ended up essentially catching the smugglers that were responsible for the deaths of those folks and injuries to the rest, and ended up getting them federally prosecuted. But that encompassed, obviously processing the truck, swabs, getting known DNA from our suspects. They were essentially formulated and doing a lot of this investigative work that's outside of our lane of the scope of duties of the Highway Patrol. But I quickly learned that if you're doing your job and Highway Patrol knows you're competent of doing those things, and other agencies within the department, CID and the Rangers, they're going to give you the ability to work and do those things. You just have to ask for permission, essentially. So, and I say that and I bring that up because that's when I end up transferring from Mission, Texas. I hit my 2-year mark. The great state of Texas tried to detach me to a little bit longer on the border, but at the time, Hank Sibley was my captain there on the border, and he was great leader. He ended up essentially retiring as a lieutenant colonel with the department. I'm sorry, regional director, not lieutenant colonel. He retired as the RD up here in Dallas. But I transfer back. I'm allowed to transfer back thanks to Hank, because he was about keeping folks where they needed to be.
Now, before you go on though, Joe, I think it's very interesting. You took it upon yourself to do that case. You had that experience, but and I know this wasn't a reason why you did it, but if somebody is if your goal is to become a ranger, and there's always got to be people looking.
Yes, sir.
To kind of take it upon yourself to do something that's out of the realm, that's got to look great for you down the road.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And to me that's, and especially when it comes to law enforcement or victims, especially victims, like anytime I see something like that, like I want to put somebody's going to pay for this.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to be put in jail for this, and that's kind of the way I've always been. So I did definitely, have that career aspiration, but man, I'm super hyper focused when it comes to people that are doing bad things. Like, if you do some bad things and I'm involved with it, like, I may not sleep, but you're going to end up in jail.
Yeah.
It's just the way it's going to go. But yeah, definitely one of those things where it's definitely going to help you down the road if you're doing things like that and distinguishing yourself.
Yeah.
So I transfer. You asked about the hostage negotiator stuff. So I transfer back up here to Highway Patrol in Mineral Wells, a trooper here in Mineral Wells. And so we have a special operations group, which is essentially SRT, which is the SWAT guys, and then you have negotiators that are attached to that, and it's under the Rangers division. So I was like, hey, they had a negotiator spot open, and Don Stoner at the time was the hostage negotiator team leader, which is a ranger that I'd worked with already. And he's like, hey, we got a spot come open if you want to put in for it, apply for it. So I applied. I went to the board, and I was fortunate enough to get picked up. So ended up getting picked up and doing some hostage negotiator training, getting certified and all that. I enjoy talking to people. It's just, so it was kind of a natural fit for me.
What do you do? I'm curious. What do you do as a hostage negotiator?
So any type of incident that is barricaded suspect, responding with the SWAT teams to different incidents, whether if it does become barricade or if they need more intelligence and things we need to do. So getting the throw phones in there, essentially talking folks out, talking de-escalating situations wherever it deems. And it gave me a little more exposure also to the Rangers division, into different Rangers. So in the process, I was fortunate or unfortunate to deal with some critical incidents where I ended up, being the primary negotiator in things, essentially talking folks out from doing some bad things, and just kind of getting a little more ground with the Rangers. Well, I'm here. I'm back. I still got my CIs. I've still got my connections with other agencies, so I'm still being also utilized by the Rangers in different capacities. So essentially, Tony Bradford, maybe looking for somebody or whatever, he's still calling me like, "Hey, I need this, and I need you to essentially look for this person or help me get a resolution to this." And this is kind of the point where I was going to do my time in highway patrol. I was going to do my 4 years, and I was going to try to put in for CID, and then I was going to do my time in CID, and then I was going to try to go to the Rangers, but it didn't work out like that. So I get up here and I'm being utilized for these different things. Well, Don Stoner, who's the ranger down in Johnson County, this is kind of what broke everything open. He calls me up, and they had a murder in outside Johnson County, and the person they suspect of doing the murder is a Honduran national, but they don't really have any physical evidence to corroborate it, and it's going to be pretty much an interview case. But there's also the language barrier aspect of it. Nobody can talk to them. The investigators, nobody knows Spanish. I'm fluent in Spanish. Growing up as a kid, my mom was always like, "Hey, you're going to know both languages." But not only that, read it, write it, and speak it, but she would also make us read the Bible in Spanish.
Wow.
And the Bible is hard enough to read in English. So, anyways, all that to say is, I'm fluent in Spanish. So he calls me up. And keep in mind, this is my first year back in my area from the border. He's like, "Hey, we got the guy picked up on a detainer for immigration status. No pressure, but can you come to Dallas Homicide and get a confession from this guy?" So I'm like, "I can try." Obviously, so chain of command's in the loop. Everybody knows that I kind of help the Rangers at this time, so I'm allowed some grace. I never do anything without making sure that the chain of command, my supervisors are good with it. So I kept a pair of plain clothes in my car for just these situations. People don't at the time, the people I was talking to, they don't like a uniform, so I'd essentially have to pop out of that uniform and put on some plain clothes to talk to these folks. So that's what I did that night. I popped in some plain clothes and flew to Dallas Homicide, and the guy was in a holding area, and I realized that he'd been running for a little bit. He hadn't eaten anything, so I gave him a bologna sandwich and a water, and I asked for an interview room, and so we went to the interview room. We went through the whole, Miranda and all that, and I got lucky enough to get a confession from him, and he essentially timelined everything on how he killed her and corroborated the physical evidence, and essentially ultimately leading to a conviction. But again, justice for a victim, right? We had a female that was brutally murdered and dumped in the middle of nowhere. And again, no pressure, but we need this confession, right? So that kind of set me on a different course now. So obviously, being the small community that the Rangers are, they knew that my aspiration was to be in the Rangers, but that I was also going to do my time in highway patrol and then essentially do more time before I put in for the Rangers. But Tony Bradford called me up, and he's like, "Hey, I know what the plan was." He goes, "But it's changed." He's like, "You need to just, when you hit your 4-year mark, you just need to put in for the Rangers." I was like, "Okay, I can do that." So I continue to work, continue to keep my nose to the ground, and we do so before you can ever start testing for promotion or going to any boards, you have to do a Trooper 2 test, and then you pass the Trooper 2 test or board, and then you become a Trooper 2, and now you're eligible. So I took my Trooper 2 test, board, and then immediately went and took CID test, Ranger test, Sergeant's test, just to have those on file, and then went to my first Ranger board, and was scheduled for my second. They were like a week apart, so my Ranger board. So now I'm in the loop, right? I'm going to a Ranger board, and my very first Ranger board on the board are two guys that are just heroes to me, Corey Lane and Wayne Matthews. I knew Wayne Matthews through the negotiations side of the house. Wayne was a lieutenant at the time in Company D, and he was just one of those guys, he's just the guy, like a Ranger, And Corey, of course, he's here now. He's now a major. This is before he became assistant chief, and those are the first two guys on my board. And I'm super nervous. Obviously, here I am. I don't even have a Trooper 2 badge yet, and I'm sitting here at a Ranger board, probably way sooner than I should be here, in my opinion. At the time. So, man, everything just came natural to me during that board. The questions are things that I do on a regular basis. You're talking Fourth, Fifth, and Sixth Amendment, and you're talking about diplomacy and dealing with agencies and things that I do this already. So I felt super confident in that board. I thought it went really well, and I come out of the board, and they're only picking one. So you got a 4-year essentially trooper, and then they end up going with a guy that was in CID down there in Austin, who's been with the department for I think at the time he'd been with the department for 20 years, 19, 20 years. So I get a call from Corey, and he's like, "Hey, you did nothing wrong." He's like, it was literally like "Hey, the, we got to pick one. Who's it gonna be?" So they ended up going with the CID agent. He's like, "Just go to your second board and do the same thing you did there, and we'll see." So I went to Company C, which is essentially home now. That was Company F, which was the Waco area, and this is Company C up in the Panhandle. And I went there, did the same thing, and then I got the call. January 9th of 2020, they're like, "Hey, Chief Collins called me," and he said, "Hey, yeah, I hear you want to go to Childress." And I said, "Yes, I do want to go to Childress." It's Company C. It covers from Graham up to Canadian and the Panhandle, where I grew up. I mean, it couldn't have been better.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it, it's like it's fate. You got to go back
It
home.
is.
You got to be a ranger. I mean,
Yep. So it was like, yeah, absolutely. So Michael Parker's my first lieutenant. Man, just another, I mean, salt of the earth man with tons of knowledge and advice. Been in the Rangers for a long time. Just gave me the speech, and I was even told before then, "Hey, when you become a Ranger, like, we're throwing you the keys, and it's time to go to work. If something happens, you just go to work." So, January of 2020, I promote, and this is pre-COVID time too, but COVID didn't stop any work for the Rangers. I think a lot of people were like, "Oh, it was COVID." Yeah, COVID didn't stop murders or
Right.
violent crime.
right.
So here I am, and stop me if I'm jumping ahead.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so here I am, newly promoted Ranger, trying to put everything together, and as I'm coming into the Panhandle, I'm slowly like dropping cards off to folks that I don't know, because in Childress it's pretty unique because the Panhandle's huge. I don't know if you've been in that part of Texas.
No.
It's huge. It's a big part, but it's less populated.
Mm.
But less populated for the Rangers in Company C means you cover more area.
Yeah.
So your assignments are, you could have 9 counties. So just depending on where you're at, I can't remember, they restructured it at the time I was there, but I ended up with like 6 counties. And before that it was like 9. So they ended up restructuring it because we ended up getting 2 guys in Wichita Falls because of the workload at the time. So here I am, brand new Ranger, kind of introducing myself. I'm not on the job like a week, and my phone, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and my phone rings. I answer it. It's a sheriff in one of the rural counties. It's like, "Hey, we got a murder. Um, can you respond?" Absolutely, yeah, I'll be there in a minute. So we got it taped off. We're waiting on you. So I'll respond to the scene. End up I told you, I think I mentioned it to you earlier. In the Panhandle, and depending on where your boots land as a Ranger, you may be crime scene to courtroom. Well, in the Panhandle, you are crime scene to courtroom. The agencies are smaller agencies. Their investigators are limited. They may have one investigator. They don't have a crime scene group, so you're essentially it. So when you show up, crime scene courtroom. So I do my thing. I don't have any of the crime scene schools, but I had at the time. But I know how to process a crime scene based on my prior experience. Um, do all the documentation, collect the gun, end up tracking down a bad guy the same night. It wasn't a complicated murder. Get him put up, do all the interviews, essentially get a good confession. And I'm like, well, I'll wait for sunup and I'll call the boss, let them know what's going on, because they have to do a reporting. Of course, brand new to the Rangers, right? I'm working like I've seen these guys work in my areas. They handle business, they go take care of business, they work with the local agencies, and then heck, I didn't even know you really had to tell anybody what you were doing in the Rangers, kind of thing. Uh, so I end up waiting for sunup, and I call Michael Parker, and I say, "Hey, boss, I had a murder last night, and this is what I did. Got the bad guy in custody." He goes, "You had a murder last night?" It's like week one. He's like, "Why didn't you call anybody?" He's like, "Oh, I didn't know you could call anybody." He's like, "Man, yeah, you're new. We could have sent out somebody to kind of help you along, or whatever, kind of get your boots on the ground." And that was just kind of the pace. I was like, "Hey, I just thought you threw me the keys. You said go to work. You gave me the speeches and traditions and values and things I needed to uphold, and that's just what I did."
Man, man.
So that was my first murder in the Rangers and Company C.
So we talked a little bit about this before we started recording, but what's your specialty? I mean, everybody kind of has their thing. What would you consider your specialty?
I love talking to people, so
Okay.
I would say interview and interrogation. And then there was my co-area ranger up there was Michael Smith, and he and I just we get really into the human components of things and really talking to people and really analyzing how we're going to approach this interview depending on how it is. So I really gravitate, and I always have from being a narcotics investigator, talking to people, getting a confession, being able to corroborate overt acts, which is essentially who did what, how did they do it, and get them to take you back to a source. It's work, right? Getting somebody to tell you the truth is work. So you really have to know how to approach it. So I always dove into it. I'd watch other investigators' interviews that I thought were really great interviewers, and I'd see how people did things. And when I got up there, Mikey and I just kind of took it. Mike was already working on some things for interview interrogation. So when I went to New Ranger School and interview interrogation, uh, they really didn't. They were starting to go that way of bringing something in house for the interview interrogation, and I ended up getting sucked into that. So that's how I ended up teaching interview and interrogation at New Ranger School.
Hmm.
Jason Bobo and Billy Jack Mims at the time were the coordinators. They're both majors now. Jason Bobo is my major here in Garland, and Billy Jack Mims is a major down in West Dakota Company D. So great men and just mentors of mine, also people that I look up to, and they really were instrumental in saying. I don't know if I had much of a choice in helping with interview interrogation at New Ranger School, but I was pretty much voluntold that that's what I was doing. But I enjoy it,
Yeah.
so I ended up doing it. But yeah, that's what I gravitate more to is talking to folks.
Okay. So I want to ask you some. I don't know. These might be silly questions. I want to see. First of all, I hope you've seen it because I want to know reality here. You seen Hell or High Water, the movie?
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me this, because it seems to me that you guys are pretty much working on your own. You're working with state and locals and everything else. And that movie kind of has Jeff Bridges, and I can't remember the other guy's name, but it's almost like they're partners. Do you guys ever work? You get to work with other Rangers?
Yeah, that happens
Okay.
from time to time, depending on the situation.
Okay.
So depending on the complexity of the investigation, depending on what's going on. So that's kind of like Tony Bradford and I, Don Stoner and I, just depending on the case and what involves. We may end up working with somebody or need an extra hand doing something or need a number two in an interview room. And that's kind of how Mike and I had a couple cases where it involved police officers. It's anytime you're dealing with a police officer that's not doing something right, you're going to end up having to essentially effect an arrest on a police officer. You always want another ranger there with you.
Okay.
Safety reasons and different things, bounce off ideas. Just strategically, it's just a lot safer. Or let's just say you have you're deep in the hunt and you need to delegate something. Who better to delegate it to than one of your co-area rangers?
Yeah.
So
Okay, so same type of thing having to do with that movie, more of a Texas question.
yes, sir.
When I think I remember in the movie, right? They get in that they basically get into a chase and all the locals are helping out with guns and chasing these guys. Is that realistic?
I would say no. Don't get me wrong; it's happened.
Yeah.
And I've seen it happen.
Yeah.
But not to not to that extent.
It just seems to me the citizens of Texas are just they're so polite. They're so nice. A lot of them are carrying guns, but they're so pro law enforcement. that seems like something that would really happen.
It again, it has happened,
Okay.
but and I've seen it happen, like I said earlier, but it's not happening all the time.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
in my part of the world where I came from,
Yeah.
and in this area, there's always a pursuit. Like somebody's always running from the police for some reason.
Yeah.
So essentially, I've seen a lot of pursuits, and they don't always they don't
Okay.
have citizens pulling out rifles.
Okay. All right. So a little bit more serious. I talked to Lane Aiken the other day about this case happened in 2022 having to do with Athena Strand. Yes, Athena Strand. I know that look, this is an ongoing case, hasn't gone to trial, so there's not much you can talk about it. But can you just kind of give an overall flavor of that
Yeah,
case?
that's one of those. Obviously, there's tons of cases that will stay with you forever, and I think Athena's one of those cases that will. You know, so going back to me telling you about going into law enforcement and kind of why I wanted to do it and what it is all those things, but the most important part that it is that I believe anybody that does and wears a badge, or I'd like to hope so, is that this is a calling. It's not a job; it's a calling. This is something that as a man of faith in religion, I believe God puts you where He wants you. So that being said, I always go with my gut. I always go with that this is a calling first and foremost. Is we're serving God, we're serving our fellow man, we're being righteous in what we do. So all that to say is that when Athena went missing that first night, and I'll never forget it because there was a lot of things going on. But we had a company meeting, uh, and I got home and I get alerts on my phone that essentially say, "Hey, this is going on." And I just got home. I'd been gone for a couple of days. I'd been at training before that. It's this job's tough on the family as it is. But I'll never forget getting that alert that Athena was missing that night. And I looked at the temperatures, and at first it just came out that she had wandered away from her residence. And I looked at the temperatures that night, and it was in the low 30s, and temperatures were dropping quick. So, as a father, and as listening to my gut, I'm like, I need to be there. Like, I mean, it's been approximately an hour at the time that she'd been missing. I hadn't even been called to assist yet. I called the investigator from the sheriff's office. I said, "Hey, are you out there on this missing little girl?" And he said, "No, not yet. I'm getting told she just wandered away right now." So I was like, "Hey, man," I was like, "What resources can I offer y'all so we can get her found pretty quick? Because it's cold, and all we have, she'd wandered off." So he's like, "Yeah, let me put boots on the ground and call you back." And he gets there and he's like, "Yeah, man, it's cold. This is what we have. Can we maybe get a helicopter?" So I made a couple of calls. We got some helicopters going. We got additional troopers, manpower to come. And then I said, "You know what? Let's just be preventative and do some things." I made scene pretty quick, and I said, "Let's do some things preventatively, just to make sure that we're all on the same page. Just law enforcement things that we need to do, locking in people on statements, corroborating those statements, collecting digital evidence. We got a missing little girl, and it's always tough having those conversations with parents. It's like, hey, not accusing anybody of anything, but somebody's missing, and I'm going to be asked these questions, so I need to make sure I do my due diligence, and that is that I check all these boxes. Uh, and it was that morning. I just everything I was looking at, I was like, this little girl's been taken. So I saw Lane Aiken obviously showed up that night, and then he and I sat in my truck, and I said, "Hey, we need to call the cavalry on this. There's a lot of things that we need to do. We need resources. There's things that I want done, but I want them done here today." So we got tons and tons of resources and delegated it out. And I won't get into a whole lot of details, but
Yeah.
I didn't sleep. It's kind of what I do with things like that, especially when I get on a hunt. It's like it, and then I had this perfect time where other Rangers came out. Don Stoner came out. Reuben Mankin, my lieutenant, came out. We had different boots on the ground, just kind of getting things and essentially, hey, we need to do this. We need to make sure this gets done. Utilizing other folks to do things. And I had a direction I was going pretty quick, and it came interesting story also with my brother at the time. So my brother was there helping on the search and rescue part of it, just essentially, canvassing waterways, and we have a missing child. So my brother's already in the area, and we end up developing a suspect. And I need the suspect taken into custody pretty quick at the time when I figured it out. Well, I'm having trouble getting a marked unit in the area on the route. Ultimately, we figured out it was a FedEx driver. And my brother was the only marked unit available that I could get there. So, and there's a very colorful story to this, but he says I was very vocal with him when I told him where I needed him to be. So I got him in that location, and I said, "You hold on to that guy until I get there," and he did. So he detained him. I got there, and ultimately ended up, for the next however many hours interviewing this gentleman, and ultimately getting a confession from him in reference to Athena's disappearance, and ultimately getting him to lead me to her location. Ongoing investigation, so a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
The case, I worked on it since, and still, obviously, I ended up flying to North Carolina doing some things on that case. I've kind of been all over the place with it, and then obviously with working with the sheriff's office, and Lane being the department head, he's been in there every step of the way as well. So a lot of moving parts, a lot of people contributed to that case, and it's definitely one that sticks to you.
Yeah.
But and then you go back to that human component, and ultimately needing closure for that family, right? So you don't ever want to leave. There's family members that don't ever get their loved ones back, and essentially that family wanted and needed closure onto, hey, what happened? What happened to our baby, and where's she at? We want to put her, lay her to rest here. So, but yeah, that case was a booger of a case. A lot of sleepless nights, and just going hard on it, just doing what we do as, what Rangers and law enforcement is, just going as hard as we can until we get resolution.
So this is one of the questions I'd like to ask toward the end of the interview, and I'd like kind of your take on this. It's got to be a tough case to deal with personally. How does being in law enforcement? I mean, you make sure I got this right. How old did you say you were?
39.
39. So you're still pretty young, right?
Mm-hmm.
How has being in law enforcement? You said your wife is very forgiving, adaptive, whatever you want to call it. How has it affected your family? How do these type of cases affect your family? How do you personally deal with this? How do you kind of get your head mentally right when you deal with tough cases like this?
That's a good question. So, in our profession, you know, divorces are pretty high.
Mm-hmm.
Thank God I've been with the same wife, for a long time. She's a very spiritual, faithful woman, very supportive of what I do, and ultimately she knows this is, like I said earlier, a calling, and respects that. And I'm fortunate for that, because some people say I don't have the best luck when it comes to law enforcement, because since I've gotten into law enforcement, it's just been a series of crazy things that I can't even explain to this day. It seems like everywhere I go, bad things seem to happen. We always manage to get a resolution, but needless to say, it's been a tough, 16 and a half years in law enforcement. And through that process, I've had very supportive wife, very supportive family. And I think my faith is the primary one. obviously turning to God in the times of hardness, and to my wife, her supporting me, just being with my family, being outdoors. I'm an avid hunter. I love to hunt. I love being in the outdoors. So that's my escape. Just being out with my son and my daughter, my wife, my brothers, going hunting together, my friends, doing hunting trips. That's my getaway. My just leave everything behind and just get lost in nature. So
Okay.
that's what I enjoy to do. But it's definitely one of those things where um, I try not to bring any of this home. Um, I don't really hardly discuss. I talk about these things, but never in great detail to my family.
Mm-hmm.
So they're aware I'm doing something, but I never, I vent a little, and get a little back. Uh, but it's mainly, the people that are in it and that can listen to these things, like my coworkers. I go back to some of the guys that are mentors to me in the Rangers division, such as Ruben Mankin, who's my lieutenant now. I mean, that guy, he's just, same way, right? He working Ranger, did a lot of good things in the field. He's another guy that I looked up to before he was even my boss here. And he's a sounding board. People, Tony Bradford, sounding board, just folks that can listen to it and been there,
Yeah.
understand what you're dealing with. So there's a lot of different avenues. The worst thing you can do in this job is not to know your limitations, right? Not to know that, hey, this my cup runneth over and it's time to stop. Um, thank God I hadn't got there yet, and I get hyper focused on things and make sure the job is done before I even start trying to reflect on anything. But there's definitely a decompression after the fact, like, hey, it's I hadn't slept in 3 days, or I've been going hard at this case for a week. Like, it's time to check out for a little while, not be here,
Okay.
So
So I'm curious about this because, police officers see a lot of stuff.
mhm.
And you in particular, I guess, your words, bad things kind of gravitate around you,
Yeah.
right? And you just,
Mhm.
whether that's fortunate or not for the victims, you get to work those type of cases. Since you began your law enforcement career till now, have you kind of had a change in how you see people? Is it more pessimistic? Or do you still have an optimistic view? What's your take?
I try to stay optimistic, and I like to see the good in people, and I like to think there's more good than bad, right? But it has skewed me in the fact that I'm not as trusting, especially when it comes to my family, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a little more cautious with people. I'm a little more cautious with where my environment. I'm a little more cautious in the things that surround my family. Um, Not as trusting. It's just kind of one of the maybe more of a fear of what people are capable of, especially when it comes to your family. So I like to see the good in people, but at the same time, I'm very cautious. I'm more cautious, especially on folks that I don't know. So,
Ranger, I can't thank you enough for this interview. I really appreciate
yeah.
it.
No, I appreciate you. Thank you for what you're doing. I know it brings a light and an understanding on law enforcement for people to kind of see what we do on a day to day and see the human aspect of
Absolutely.
things. So I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yep.